As your new superintendent, I am so happy to have this opportunity to share with you my thoughts on teaching and learning. The work that you do each day in the classroom is critical to the success of our students, our schools, our district, and our community. The work you do each and every day matters in the lives of your students. We all have in us the ability to be better teachers, to be masters of our craft. As I have journeyed through my educational career, I have learned a few things about teaching and learning. First, teachers matter. Teaching is a noble profession, and what you do each and every day matters to your students, their families, and our community. Teachers, through their planning and instruction, have the ability to help all students grow and achieve. Every day that you enter a classroom, you are making the difference in the lives of at least one, if not all, of your students. At times, you are a friend, a superhero, a confidant, a comedian, a disciplinarian, but at all times you are a teacher. You will always be someone's teacher. I agree with educational leader Todd Whitaker. The best part of teaching is that it matters. The hardest part of teaching is that every moment matters every day. What you do matters. Teachers matter. Second, teachers are more effective when they are engaged in a collaborative process where they are encouraged to reflect on their practice, try new teaching techniques, are provided with constructive feedback, and feel safe in their teaching environment and with those charged with evaluating them. You will see administrators in your room on a regular basis, and they have been charged with engaging in conversations about improving instructional practice. These classroom visits and conferences about teaching are one way in which you can continue to build your craft and better serve your students. Throughout this year, I encourage you to engage in the evaluation process with your administration. If each teacher commits to improving their practice this year, the impact on student achievement and student success will be amazing. Finally, utilize the wealth of resources around you. Salt Lake City School District is made up of talented teachers and leaders who help and support each other. Make an effort to plan with a colleague this year. Observe another teacher teaching in the same content or grade level. Share a success story with a peer, or connect to a teacher at a different school and share a tip or strategy. We want each professional to feel supported and that they have tools necessary to succeed. No one needs to feel isolated in their classroom. You are surrounded by caring individuals who will assist you in improving. Please use the resources that we have in the district. Your success means success for all students.
As you know, we've had to implement some pretty significant changes to our educator evaluation system over the last couple of years, not the least of which are two entirely new components of stakeholder input and student growth. But despite all the new requirements and changes we've had to make, the focus has always been on helping teachers improve their practice. The Joint Educator Evaluation Committee and I have tried to foster the concept of continual improvement by emphasizing the collaborative aspect of our evaluation, which is why it's still called the Educator Collaborative Assessment Program, which we have all come to know as ECAP. As part of implementing the necessary changes, the Joint Educator Evaluation Committee and I have been working to identify the 5 essential elements of what we believe constitutes good teaching here in Salt Lake City, which in turn serves as the basis of the new classroom observation process and streamlined educator standards being introduced here today. This year, we want to work toward making the system more manageable and really focus on the things that matter most in our efforts to provide our students with the highest quality education possible. In order to do this, we recognize teachers need and deserve good feedback aimed at helping everyone improve as continual learners. Feedback that is centered on the essential elements of teaching that should be present in every classroom every day, not a system set up to be a gotcha based on the latest educational trend or checklist. We will no longer worry about a 3-year summative cycle, and instead will complete annual evaluations as we have done in the past with 3 collaborative meetings between the educator and administrator every year. To help provide the consistent and reliable feedback teachers deserve, we are asking principals to provide at least 3 20-minute observations that include documented feedback every year. We are going to continue to utilize the new stakeholder input and student growth components as they can help validate and refine the good things that are already in place in so many of our classrooms. Input gained from the learning community through surveys and other communications helps ensure the invaluable service we offer is meeting the needs of our stakeholders. And by using student learning objectives, known as SLOs, to set goals and monitor student progress so that instruction can be tailored to best meet the needs of every student in our charge. These components help provide a better understanding of the whole teaching picture. But with stakeholder input and student growth being worth 10 and 20% of the overall evaluation, respectively, you can easily see that the primary component of educator evaluations continues to rely on indicators of professional performance in relation to the Utah Effective Teaching Standards, which is where the 5 essential elements of plan, teach, monitor, climate, and invest come into play. I want to emphasize that an effective evaluation system must strive to validate what's already working well and help identify areas that can become even better so that we can help prepare our students to become future-ready learners so that they can be ready to solve any problem the world may throw their way.
The first area of focus is planning. Great teaching depends on great planning. Preparation starts with knowing the content and designing goals and objectives for the lesson that are based on the Utah core standards. The best lessons engage students in the content and have them using discipline-specific literacy skills such as reading maps in social studies or using tables and graphs in science. Great teachers plan to make their lessons accessible and differentiated so that all students receive an appropriate level of challenge. As teachers prepare, they draw in classroom resources and technology so that lessons are interesting and motivating for students. The plan indicators recognize that the art of teaching depends on knowing students and making careful preparation for their success.
Planning can be one of the most enjoyable parts of your job. Taking the time to identify important learning objectives and the activities that support those learning objectives can have significant positive impacts on student learning and their behavior. Especially when time is short or when the skill or concept is challenging, it's critical to identify the most important objectives for your lesson. These goals should be very clear to you before you start planning. Start by looking at the Utah core standards. Sometimes I like to ask myself, what is it that I want my students to remember 10 years from now from this particular lesson? Planning activities for your lesson should take into account and build from your students' background knowledge. Students could consider culture, extracurricular activities, current events, social media trends, and prior lessons when connecting objectives to students' experiences. A good lesson will have 4 components, not necessarily presented in the same order every time. Students should be introduced to the skill or concept. Teachers should demonstrate the skill. Students should have ample opportunities to practice using this concept. And finally, students should be given feedback relative to their achievement of the learning objectives. When you demonstrate to your students that you have taken the time and effort to plan an outstanding lesson, you show them that you value every minute of class time and that you expect them to learn something every day. This is a powerful message which can minimize problems related to classroom management. Some ways to highlight your preparation include posting your objectives or key vocabulary. You may also want to write a daily agenda on your board. All teaching materials should be readily available for distribution, and your transitions between activities should be fast and smooth. Finally, I think it's important to remember that challenging, interesting, and fun activities alone do not represent highly effective planning. Instead, it's the consistent link between the content-based and skill-based objectives and those fun activities that make for an awesome lesson.
Following plan is teach. Looking at this essential element, you will notice that there are specific, observable behaviors for both teachers and students. When teachers are executing a well-planned lesson, they incorporate multiple ways to represent and explain key ideas and pose questions that require students to cite evidence to support their thinking. Teachers support students in learning and using accurate academic language and provide explicit support for English learners. Engaging, well-planned lessons involve all students throughout the entire instructional period, with supports provided for reluctant learners. Students are engaged in higher level thinking, including posing questions, solving problems, and critically analyzing information. Opportunities abound for students to show their understanding in authentic and meaningful ways.
As we all know, we get kids with different needs, different emotional needs, different social needs, different academic needs. Do I reach each child every day? It's an incredibly hard thing to do. I don't think I do. But one thing I do, and I'm very confident about that I do in my classroom, is that I make these kids to become independent learners. Each of them is responsible for their own learning. Then I will set individual goals for them. These goals could be writing goals, reading goals, comprehension goals, fluency goals, mathematic goals. Each child would be working using different strategies that I teach them how to reach these goals. And as they reach the goals that they need in a specific area, then we move on. A lot of the learning in my classroom is done through collaboration and communication with others. My classroom is successful because when you walk into my classroom, you'll see kids working on their individual goals. You'll see kids who are collaborating together towards a common goal. It is a community of learning, and that's why I think it's successful.
The monitor element addresses how teachers use different types of assessment of short, medium, and longer time frames to improve their own instructional practice and to provide students and families the information they need to monitor and reflect on their progress. On a daily or weekly basis, teachers create formative assessments on their own or in collaboration with their colleagues to inform them about student learning. This allows the teacher to adjust instruction quickly if all students have not mastered the objectives of the lessons. At the end of several weeks of instruction, a longer-term assessment, such as district interim tests in Illuminate, can be used to monitor the results of the instructional block, while there's still plenty of time in the year to adjust the instructional approach for all or some students. Summative testing at the end of the school year allows teachers, students, and families to understand students' academic attainment. Although these results typically come in after instruction is complete, teachers should reflect on the data for individual students and for the whole class so that they improve the quality of their planning, instruction, and assessment practices in the future.
An integral part of my classroom practice is the use of formative assessments. These assessments allow me to check for understanding, monitor my lesson pacing, and make sure my students are learning to the best of their abilities. Quick little things such as exit tickets, self-starts, think, pair, shares, stoplights, and thumbs up, thumbs down allow me to guide their learning in a way that I know all students have access to the curriculum. It allows me to monitor the levels of mastery, give immediate feedback on misconceptions, and help students monitor their own progress. By using multiple ways of assessing them, such as oral, written, visual, kinesthetic, students have a way to show me how they are learning to the best of their ability, and in a way that is easy and comfortable for them.
Classroom climate is an observable behavior that we're looking for structures in a classroom, how a teacher has organized their time, their space, in order to really set students up for success. Looking at it from a student's point of view, very, very important for a teacher to do that. Remember what it was like to be a teenager or an elementary school kid. If things are clearly outlined, clearly identified, there's no guesswork, then we've got a chance at success here. When we have bell work, when we have students who come in and they know what's expected in the beginning of the classroom, when we have posted objectives on a board so a student knows what they're doing that day, what the objective is, when we have clearly identified routines in a classroom, where to turn in work, how something is scored, those kinds of things, so important for students. You have to create that structure for them. You have to set them up for success.
So the number one thing that I do to make sure that my class and my students feel comfortable is I get to know them. My students come before school begins, and I get to meet them at assessments and their parents, and I get to answer any kinds of questions and talk about student frustrations and anything that parents and students feel really nervous about, so that when the first day comes along, students and parents are a little more comfortable. Throughout the first couple months, I also do lots of get-to-know-you activities so that my students continue to feel comfortable and we get respect happening in my classroom. Once that is under control, I can start teaching routines and procedures, and those are extremely important because students don't know how rules work in each classroom. And then once you've got that under control, then you've got a lot of great positivity going on in your classroom. Creating a positive classroom is so important because it helps students to learn. Once that positive reinforcement in your classroom and climate has been set up, students will learn to the best of their ability.
The INVEST standard is not observed in the classroom. However, it is part of the professional conversation that happens between the educator and the administrator. This standard is about our continuous learning. Throughout our careers, we participate in a variety of professional learning and development experiences. As we study new research, new content, and new strategies, we adapt our teaching in ways that help us support the academic, social, and emotional development of every student in our classrooms. The INVEST standard also captures our collaboration with our colleagues and our school community as we advocate for informed decisions to support students' growth.
Education is the most important profession. We educate students from all walks of life and in all stages of learning. As professionals, we know that continual professional development improves the quality of our teaching and student learning. Working alongside other professionals is an amazing opportunity to collaborate and share our best practices. This investment that we all have in our professional practice is one key to improving teaching and learning on a daily basis. It is this same investment that leads to student learning.
When I think about what INVEST means to me professionally, I think of it as finding ways to push myself to be better. Whether it's participating in professional development or researching how to make learning more accessible for students, or even reading to stay current in my field. I believe if we sincerely want to invest in our students, we must invest in ourselves in a way that supports our professional growth. This occurs through a variety of ways, from working collaboratively to improve student learning, participating on school or district committees, and pursuing national board certification. We are a profession focused on learning, so any way you look at it, investing in ourselves means we're committed to always learning how to be better for our students.
To achieve our vision, excellence and equity, every student, every classroom, every day, we must all work together. Teachers, you are our most valuable resource. Each day you enter the classroom, you are making the difference in the lives of every student in your room. I am confident that the Salt Lake City School District has the best teachers who are committed to working together so that all students can achieve and succeed.